Good morning, teacher Dalmira. In this video, I'm going to explain what is a complex sentences and compound complex sentences. Firstly, I'm going to explain what is a complex sentences. A complex sentences is a sentence that contains one independent and at least one independent clause, sometimes called a subordinate clause. An independent clause is a phrase that would make sense if it were a sentence on its own, whereas a dependent clause will not form a sentence on its own. When these two types of clauses appear in a sentence, we create a complex sentence. For example, in this case, we had I like to eat the candy before I watch a movie. I like to eat the candy is an independent clause. This will make a complete sentences on its own. Before I watch a movie is an independent clause. This doesn't make a complete sentence on its own. It is depending on the first clause for the phrases to make sense. The next, we had a complex sentences can either start with the independent clause or the subordinate clause. If the subordinate clause comes first, you must add a comma. This is not needed if the independent clause comes first. Also, an uh, independent clause contains a subject and a verb. It can stand alone as a completed thought. In this example, we have because it's raining, put the two together and you have a complete sentence. Often these sentences will make sense when their independence clause on the subordinate clause is put first. Because it was raining, the football was cancelled. The next example is the football match was cancelled because it was raining. Another examples complex sentences. My dad laughed when I told a joke. Independent clause subordinating a conjunction dependent clause. There are a lot of subordinating conjunction, but here are a few common examples. Subordinating conjunctions after, for example, while, because, since, if, and when. Now we have a compound complex sentences. Compound complex sentences are the most complicated sentences as their name implies a compound complex sentences has at least two independent clauses and at least one independent clause in simple terms. An independent clause can be sentenced in its own while dependent clause cannot. For example, compound complex sentences help us express longer, more complicated thoughts with more parts than other sentences. They're good tool for planning complicated ideas or describing long chains of events. The parts these sentences that are not green or other dependent clauses. For example, uh, in this example, we have Kate that doesn't like cartoons because they are loud, so she doesn't watch them. This sentence has two independent clauses and one on depends clause. The depend clause because they are allowed can stand on its own as completed sentences it is dependence. As you probably figure out the independent clause, Kay doesn't like cartoons, and she doesn't watch them can be completed sentences on their own. We have another examples too. In this example, the dogs started barking, so the cat ran away, and I couldn't keep it, so I stopped. Now, we're dealing with more clauses, but they still follow the same rules. The independent clauses are completely sentences, while the dependent clause cannot stand on its own. Well, independent clauses. Now we're dealing with more clauses, but they still follow the same rules. The independent clauses are complete sentences, while the dependent clause cannot stand on its own. An independent clause can always stand on its own as complete sentences. That means it has a subject and a predicate. The subject will be a noun phrase, and the predicate will be a verb phrase and describe the subject or what the subject is doing. Even in another example, even thought she was tired. Abby knew she had to finish the race, and she ran to meet her team. Usually I take a walk every day while the sun sets, but it was raining today. She lies to sleep, but she can get up early if she has work. The depending clauses in compound complex sentences will not be completely sentences on their own. They are depending on the other clauses of the sentences because they don't fully make sense without them. Even though dependent clauses have a subject and a predicate, like independent clauses. Dependent clauses do not express a complete thought, usually because they are introduced by words like while, if, and because. That don't make sense without some words that are not part of the dependent clause. In this example, we had even though she was tired, Abby knew she had to finish the race, and she ran to meet her team. In this sentence, the depend clause, even though she was tired, tell us why Abby was having trouble finishing the race. It doesn't make sense without the independent clause is depend on. This example too, we had usually I take a walk every day while the sun sets, but it was raining today. As before, the independent clouds are green and the dependent clouds is orange. If we had take out while the sun sets, we can see that it isn't a complete sentence, but it does give us some like interesting information about when I take wax. It answers the question when it is introduced by the subordinating words, while even though we could take out the whole phrases and still have a correct sentence. We would have less information and a less interesting sentence. Well, now I will explain about the short dialogue. For example, Maria said, "Hi Ross, how are you?" Ross answered, "Hi Maria, I am great. How are you?" "I'm fine. What did you do last weekend?" Ross, well, I washed the car after I came home because my son went to see a doctor because he was sick. Really, I am sorry to hear that. Thanks you. Thanks, but even though he has lady, he managed to complete his hunger. Next day, I went to the race because my sister was going to compete. Also, my sister was exhausted. She came running. In fact, she got first place. I am always late because I do not have a watch. On the other hand, my sister is always on time. That was how awesome. Yes, no. Now tell me how was your last weekend? Well, I had a great weekend. I went to the beach with my family. I enjoyed the beach. My mom slept and dreamed. I walked while the sun was shining. Then she wants to swim, but I started to rain. Then when I went to the restaurant, my parents want me to pick out some drinks, but I didn't have enough money. Also, my sister has exhaust. She kept running. In fact, she got first place. Well, teacher, this is how being my presentation. Thank you. Take care of yourself. Bye bye.